Hi, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we're so excited to have you for integrating QR codes and texting into your fundraising efforts. I have a few housekeeping items before I throw it to the lovely Jody Scheib. You are all muted, but we encourage you to ask questions throughout the session. We really want to hear from you so we can have an open dialogue. So please feel free to chat those questions to us in the question box. And this is being recorded, and we will send you a copy after the event, and I think that's it. Jody, I'm gonna throw it to you.
So hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We have a pretty full hour with some pretty fantastic speakers you can see on your screen. Rob Walker from WOSU, Henry Broderson from Arizona PBS, and Katrina Combe from WEDU in my home state of Florida, up in Tampa. I'm in South Florida, so she's up in Tampa. We're going to be talking a lot about integrating QR codes and texting in all of your fundraising efforts. But before we get started and before I throw it to them, we've had a ton of questions from stations and nonprofits in general asking about some sort of details about QR codes and texting that we thought it would be worthwhile that we spend just a few minutes at the top of this presentation to go through some of the definitions, the what's, when, where's, why's, how's of this new technology. So for some of you, or many of you, you may know all of this stuff already, but hopefully you're able to take away something in the next few slides, or it helps clarify some of the things. So if we can go down to the next slide. Actually, the next slide after this is the who, what's, when, where's of the QR code. So QR codes are nothing new. They've been around forever, but the COVID and this last year has really, and plus some changes in technology, has really saw the resurgence of QR codes, and many stations have started integrating them in their on-air and direct mail efforts. So what are they? They're a type of matrix barcode that your viewer, your donor, if you're at a restaurant and you're the guest, can scan with their smartphone and be taken to a URL or your donation form. But those actually aren't the only options. You can also direct them to a phone number, or you can direct them to an app store. So if you wanted to, say, send out a postcard with a URL encouraging people to download the PBS video app, the URL could go directly to the app store to encourage them to do that. So there's a lot of functions of the QR code that we are hopefully going to be testing in the next few months, and some that have already been tried we're going to talk about. You're going to be using the QR code in direct mail. That's my dog, so I apologize. In direct mail and on-air pledge. Some stations have asked if they can use the QR code in emails or on their websites. And since the QR code is really meant to scan, it's the only way, is to scan with your smartphone, you really don't want the reader of your email to go and get a different smartphone or get their smartphone to scan their computer when you can just use a link in your email. So you want to avoid using QR codes in emails or on your websites, anywhere that you can just as easily use a link or a button, use that. The QR code is really only for direct mail and on-air pledge at this point. So where do you get the QR codes? The best thing about them is they're free. I mean, I think that's the best thing about them is they're really easy to generate and free for everybody. If you're using in your direct mail, your agency, your direct mail partner should be able to create them for you. Or you can go to any of these. There's dozens of them. I just put two right here on the slide that we'll share afterwards. They're online free sites, and they'll create these sort of generic QR codes for you. You put the URL in, you hit generate, it creates this generic, I hate that phrase though, generic one, and you can download it as a JPEG or an EPS file or whatnot. Or you can have a custom one that costs money, that you can have your logo in there, you can put a picture of Julia Childs in there, or whatever you want. Those cost money, but these generic ones that we've really been working on so far are free. And then the next question we get asked is, why in the world would we do this? Why are we just adding one more way for them to give? And the question sort of answers itself. It's because we're providing one more way for them to give. We're meeting our donors where they are. We're making it easy for them to donate however they choose to donate. Some of your donors are writing your website address, going, navigating through your web to make a gift, when this link will take them right to the donation form. Let's make it as easy for them as possible. And we wanted to drive donors to give online. Online donors typically give more. We get their email address. We have another way to communicate with them. So it's all in all a good thing. So QR codes are pretty simple, but when we move on to texting, because the world of texting and text, oh, I almost forgot my caution. How could I forget my caution sign? A word of caution about QR codes. Please make sure that your donation form is mobile friendly. Everybody who scans a QR code is going there from their smartphone. So if they do not have a good experience when they get there, they're just going to give up and walk away. So make sure it is mobile friendly. If you have any questions about that, please reach out to Christina, myself, anybody on our team. We're happy to review your form, give you tips for how to make it more mobile friendly, but please make sure to double check. Give your phone to your grandmother, have her try and make a gift online. If she has trouble, give us a call. Now on to texting. Texting is where we find the most confusion because it's constantly changing. I mean, every day we're getting rules about, they're changing the rules and the guidelines for the different types of text. So these are the types of texts that we're talking about right now. By the next time we all get together, there could be 50 more, but right now there's really these three. The first is text to give. That's what you're doing on air. That's what, when you say text I Heart WOSU to your Pledge 1-800 number, that's text to give. The key thing to remember there is the donor is initiating the relationship. I was driving to lunch and on my radio it said text a keyword to a short code. So, and enter to win $1,000. It's a national thing. I don't know if you all do this, but I sat there and texted sushi to 51555. That's a keyword and a short code. That's still text to give. It's about the donor initiating that initial relationship for the consumer. The next one is peer-to-peer texting. That's when one person or one 10-digit number is texting another 10-digit number. It's a pretty manual process, so if you're, Facebook doing texting for whatever reason, you wouldn't want to use peer-to-peer. It's not a mass sending out 500,000 texts in 1 minute. It's one person or one 10-digit texting another 10-digit. This is what we're doing most of the time when we're talking about peer-to-peer texting. Opting in is not mandatory for this type of texting because it's this one-to-one. It's a very slow process. You're also not going to send 50,000 texts on Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, most likely if you're doing peer-to-peer texting. But for what we're doing in public media, it's really the perfect solution. And again, opting in is not necessary. When people ask if opting in is necessary, or I've heard our donors need to opt in, they're talking about broadcast texting. That's when an app or a computer texts 500,000 people the exact same text all at once. If you were going to do that type of texting, then you'd need your donors to opt in. That's an important difference or distinction because you need to remember if at some point we're going to shift to broadcast texting because it's more affordable, less expensive than peer-to-peer, we're going to want to make sure our CRM is able to capture whether or not a donor has opted in. If you're appending cell phone records to your files, as I think Rob has, you'll want to make a note of this. We need to note that this is not an indication of an opt-in. This is an appended number, and that's a super important distinction. If we're ever shifting to broadcast texting, we're going to want to keep that in mind. Somewhere on your CRM, you need to make a note if somebody has opted in. But right now, we're really only doing text to give and peer-to-peer texting. And on the next slide, we'll talk about just one more slide, some of these definitions, the different options for peer-to-peer texting. There are 3 different options right now, each with their own sort of limitations and, of course, each with their own price points. And the costs, of course, here are if you're doing texting with CBA. I know other suppliers have different cost points, but these are the CBA prices. The first is SMS texting, which stands for short message texting, and it's exactly that. It's a 160-character max text, so it is a really short text when you're including your bit.ly link for your donation form and that stop language, which is needed on all of these texts. So it's a short, to-the-point text. The next, and what we've done most of, is MMS texting, the multimedia messaging service. Say that 10 times fast. So that's at 25 cents. That's what most of the stations are doing. That has a 720-character max, and it must include an image. So your logo, or a video, or a GIF, or some sort of image must also be included. And that'll be 25 cents per completed text, and again, that's what most are doing. No station has yet to do an extended SMS because it is the most expensive, and we're really using this to maximize net revenue for stations. That's a 320-character max, so if you wanted more room to type your message, but you really did not want to include your logo for whatever reason, you would use an extended SMS. And that's sort of the third option that we have not tested yet. So those are the 3 types of peer-to-peer texting options available. So again, text to give is your on-air pledge stop, is what's printed on your direct mail. Text this to this. Peer-to-peer texting is your end-of-year text where you send your donor file to us and we send out the text messages for you that you do not need an opt-in for. Okay, the next slide, I think that's it on peer-to-peer texting. Yep. And so those are some of the definitions. So hopefully as we move into the next several speakers, you'll be able to put that into context of what it is that they're doing. And on that note, I will throw it to the very fabulous, very amazing Henry Broderson from Arizona, please. Very handsome. Did I say that? Sorry if I didn't. Throwing it to you.
Thank you, Jody. So I just wanted to sort of go over what we did in March for our pledge drive. We added a QR code, and on the screen right now you can see an example of our pledge lower third that we used. You can see it's very simply added to the end of our bottom bar, which had our phone number and our website on it. We've got a little message on top that sort of rotates. There's 4 messages that rotate through. I just took one screen grab so you could see how this looked. On the right-hand side, if you're wondering why that space is left blank on the sort of right side of the QR code, that is because that's the room for our station bug that always stays up during our broadcast. So during program and during our pledge breaks, we have a station bug that stays in that lower right corner. So that's why on this lower third, that area is blank. But as you can see, the QR code does not take up a lot of space. It does not, I don't think it looks confusing or anything like that. I'll get into the semantics of it in just a moment. But, right now we have the pledge number, the website, and the QR code. As we go into the future, we are going to get into the text to give market here soon. We're waiting on the paperwork to be finalized between our vendor and the university. And so as other university stations can probably attest, it takes a while to get contracts through. So we're still in the holding pattern on that, but if we do, once we do go to text, up on where sustaining donations is located, we're gonna probably put our text to give messaging there, or it may go on the left-hand side where I have the premium information right now. So anyway, but this was the QR code we used during not only our live programming or any pre-taped breaks that we did locally, but we also dropped this in on any pledge events or national pledge opportunities that we were provided by PBS, APT, and other distributors. So we just used it throughout the entire drive. One thing I will say, we did not give anybody, advance notice that we were doing this. We dropped it on our phone key as is with no explanation. There was no mention of it in any of our pledge breaks or in our pledge messaging, nothing to that extent. It was literally dropped on our phone key. And during our drive, which was March 1st through the 14th, we had 59 pledges. I think that's on the next slide. But yes, so for the March 21 drive, we had 59 total pledges for $10,611. And that represented about 5% of our pledges during this drive. Now remember, no advance notice. We did not tell them how to use this. We did not tell them what it was. 59 people just took a snapshot of it and made their pledge via the QR code. The way we were able to track it is we assigned it a source code that basically we were able to track how people came to our website to make the donation. So people used the QR code, we could see that that's how they got to the website. But anyway, $179 average gift, which was approximately 50, I think we were at 198 was our average gift without the QR code, just people making phone donations or, throughout the drive. So it was a little bit lower than the average, but still, I find it fascinating that 59 people just went ahead and used it without any prompting or whatsoever. So that was our result for March. We have continued to keep it up. I think I noticed over the weekend when we did Atlantic Crossing, I think we may have had 1 or 2 people who donated via QR code, but that was about it. It's relatively small right now, which is what I expect. We're throwing something new at them, at our viewers. And so I think it's just going to grow in time. It'll be interesting as we go now into June, August, and subsequently later drives that, we see if these numbers continue to increase or static or what. But I think it will grow. And that probably is because on the next slide, we'll see sort of why we did it. So, during this last year, I think all of us have gone to a restaurant, whether you're doing takeout or sitting down, and you ask for a menu and they say, nope, the menu is on your table. It's sitting right in front of you on this little QR code. And so I think people are getting used to using QR codes in everyday places. And I think it's not only young people, I think it's seniors, I think it's everybody is getting used to QR codes because they're having to use them in functions that they do every day. So that's one of the reasons why I think we had success. The other thing is people know what to do with them. They're not new anymore. They're not this fresh new thing that people are just fascinated by and have no idea what they are. They're pretty common now. And once again, over the past year, they've increasingly become things that people use and interact with on a regular basis. We don't look at this as anything more than it's just one more way that people can give. Back in the day, if you were around long enough, there was this big discussion amongst pledge people about putting a web address on your phone key because that was where your phone number went. And so I think of this as the same thing as when we added the web address and when we put credit cards on our phone keys to signify that we took credit cards instead of just people making check donations. This is just one more evolution. So I think it's just, in order to, I guess, keep up with the times or keep up with technology, we felt it was important that we added it to our phone key. And then it's not exclusively the only way to give. So if somebody doesn't want to give via QR code, there are 2 other and soon to be 3 other options on there. So they can give by phone, they can go to your website, or they can text to give. So it is not something that we're just putting a QR code. It's got to be done in conjunction with the other ways to give so that there are options. So any questions? No questions? I like that. Good. All right. So then the next page, this is just simply what's next. Fresh off the press. It's actually not even off the press yet. I called or emailed my communications person, and she sent me this page in our quarterly magazine, which is coming out for June, which shows where we're going to put the QR code. We wanted to put it on the back cover of the magazine. However, luckily for us, our underwriting team had sold the back page. So we were like, okay, so let's figure out somewhere else to put it. And so what better place to put it than around where you're talking about your programs? And so we're going to put this on this page of our quarterly guide, which is talking about some upcoming programs that are going to be coming up over the summer. And this will be the first time that we've put it inside of our magazine. So we're pretty excited to see how that will work. Obviously, we will continue to keep the QR code on pledge phone keys. I think, I think they're here to stay. They're not going anywhere. And I think it will just be standard operating procedure for us to keep it on there. As I mentioned before, we are looking to do the text to give option. And so we're excited to hopefully get that rolled out for June. If not, then fingers crossed that we can get it in time for August. And then one of the things that just, in trying to think about creative ways to use QR codes, we're thinking of possibly putting them outside of pledge. So during regular programming, do you put in a QR code that says, do you love this program? Click here. Something along those lines. We haven't fleshed that out yet, but it's just something we're thinking about. Other ways that we can reach people. That's basically it. And that's about all I got. So I will say all of this is thanks to Rob Walker, because he's the one, when I was talking to Rob in January or February, he's like, you should drop a QR code on your phone key because this is what it did for us. And so thank you, Rob. And with that, I will turn it over to you.
Well, thanks, Henry. And no idea is ever original. I stole this from Feeding America on the Parks and Recreation special. And if anybody watched that, it was in April, right when the pandemic started. They would squeeze back the content. So there they are doing the show, squeeze back the content, put in a QR code, and little instructions on how to give money to Feeding America. And I remember texting Jody saying, "Hey, Jody, can we do this?" And Jody's like, "We tried QR codes, they don't work." So but that was that. But that was a long time ago. And one of the things that's true is I had an app on my phone called QR Reader. So you had to open up another app to read a QR code. When they started integrating them into just the cameras on the phone, then that really changed everything. So this is what we're doing with QR. It's similar to what Henry's doing. Again, it's free. There's a lot of places where you can generate QR codes. And if you're a pledge card station, pledge card's now generating QRs for your pledge pages. So that's fine. A few people ask me, why is the WOSU.org a little smaller? And yeah, I wanted to give texting and the QR code a little bit of an unfair advantage by making them bigger. I figured by now, after 20 years, most people know exactly what our website is because we've only been talking about it for 20 years. So I just didn't think that was that big of a deal. I wanted people to really see that they could text or they could call in. And one of the other things, so we have sort of limitations in our centralized master control. I can't rotate messages during the breaks. I get one phone key and that's it. So it's important to make sure that on your QR code that you're making sure it's always going to the same page. If you change pages from drive to drive, like if you're in a Legion station and you're creating a new page, then you got to create a new QR code. I don't do it that way. I have one page. I just change the source code for each page. But that's important to remember that you don't want people going to a dead page if you're shutting down pages from drive to drive. So make sure you're either keeping it static or you're updating your QR going into each drive. And one of the other things to bring up, and I know Katrina's going to talk about this too, and that is the texting and the QR is separate from your voice calls. They're separate systems. So we had the same ACD outage as everybody else. We also had a local phone outage for like the second Saturday of the drive for like 8 hours. So it gave people two other ways to give, because if they called the number, they kept getting a busy signal, believe it or not, they still exist, or some sort of message saying the call couldn't go through. So it doesn't cost much, and it is certainly a great way to get people engaged. And I don't know, like most everybody else, I watch TV with my phone in my hand or my iPad, and this is the perfect way to get people to give. And like a lot of people, I don't like talking to people on the phone anymore. So this is a great way to avoid all that and still give money. So next slide. There we go. So our results, like I said to Henry, like Henry said, I put it in December. You can see that the phone, the number of calls going to ACD were roughly the same, within 3 points. So you kind of see that if you add up texting and QR, it was 7% in December and 10% in March. So, was it taking away from your website? I don't know. I mean, we don't really know for sure. What I do know is it's a lot easier for a person to text or do a QR than it is to have to grab your tablet, go to a browser, open up the website, find the link, go to a giving page. So to me, it's okay to get people to move away from the website if this is just a one step in giving. And like Henry, we're a university station, so it's always going to be tough for us process money because of exclusivity of vendors. But if you get the ability to run this through Apple Pay or any of the other one-touch services, you're gonna move the process along a lot quicker. You look at the average gift there, and it's roughly in line with the rest of the ways we acquire money. So no loss there, no gain. It's just static, and in that case, it's a good thing. Next slide. So these are what we did was, look, the universe was small. Okay, so I took all the people who gave on QR text in both drives and put them together to come up with this pie chart, because it's still a small group of people. But 47% of them were new, and 31% were lapsed. So you can't ask for anything better than that. You know, did people just do it because they wanted to try it out and that's why they were new? Who knows? But the bottom line is you're getting to people, you're getting them to give, and you're reaching them where they are. And the other thing that was interesting was this was all of the online giving. There's actually, if you were in your meeting, there was a little confusion because the headline was wrong. It was all of our online giving. And 52% of our online giving, whether text, QR, or through the website, came in through a mobile device. And 48%, believe it or not, still came in from a desktop now, you know, or a laptop or some sort of physical computer. You know, I thought that number would be a lot higher, to be honest with you. I thought more people would be giving mobilely, but I guess not. And, you know, it was pointed out to me by some people that some people watch TV with their, you know, with their MacBook. And so that would come up as a computer, not a smartphone. So maybe that's how they give. Bottom line is, you know, if half the people now are giving through some sort of mobile device, whether it's your phone or a tablet, you know that they're sitting there with their phone or their tablet in their hands while they're watching TV. And really, Gen Xers are about the last generation that's going to be doing this. You know, we're the last generation that's comfortable with both linear analog TV and our mobile devices. So, you know, as we're entering into that phase of giving to public media, this is a good way to keep them engaged. Next slide. You know, I threw it out at Jody just a couple weeks ago. I said, why don't we just throw these into our direct mail? So we put it into acquisition, lapse, and ad gift. Weirdly enough, the ad gifts are doing tremendously well, and the lapse not so well. I don't know what that means. It's still really new, but a lot of people were scanning the QR codes in ad gifts. We didn't really see a lot of texting to the short code, and we didn't see a lot of movement on lapse so far. But so far, so good. And then starting in our next fiscal, we're going to start dropping both those messages into our renewal package. And again, we'll track those separately. We'll see how they do compared to emails and paper. Next. So peer-to-peer, we started peer-to-peer about September of last year with Jody. And, you know, initially we started doing it for credit card recaptures. And we did see a fair amount of movement on credit card recaptures. And it was really cost effective when you think about it. It was 25 cents. We were only texting a group of like 300 people a month. And we were seeing 20 to 30 each month coming back. Now, would they have updated their credit card if they got a letter or if they got a phone call or if they got an email? Possibly. But it was instant too. It was like they got the text and people bang right away were sending us back their updated credit card. So I think that's great. Renewal texting, yep, we started doing that in December on the last day of their membership, and we have seen movement on that as well. Again, the lifespan of a text is really about a day. You don't really see people sitting on texts and coming back to them a week later. So you know what you don't know yet is what's too much is, you know, sending somebody a credit card recapture text 3 times. Is that going to be too many? Is that not enough? We just don't know yet. But we know that it does work. We did do a big texting campaign for our calendar year end, and we did okay with it. We did have a $100,000 challenge going into the last day of the year. So that was the impetus of everything we did. It was like, you know, get your money matched right now. You only have until midnight tonight. And you can see where the numbers came in on that. I mean, we ended up doing over $100,000 on the entire campaign that day. So, you know, 7,400, not bad. It kind of falls in line with everything else we're doing. Next, is there a next? Yes, there's a next. So what we're going to continue to do is, you know, continue using the QRs and text to give during on-air pledge. We're going to test putting it into our direct mail, putting it on the outer envelope, putting it on the reply mechanism, seeing which one of those does better. In texting SMS versus NMS, I have to say that I'm probably beyond the testing part of this, and I'm sold on doing MMS, because I really feel like when you include your station's logo in the text, it adds legitimacy to it. The other thing to remember too is, Jody mentioned this earlier about your mobile page, and that is make sure your mobile page is mobile, but also enough of an identifier of who you are to add legitimacy to it. I really feel putting our logo on both ends of this adds legitimacy to the text, and we've been seeing some movement with that. We are going to look at sustainer upgrade and maybe some early renewals, and we are going to participate in the PBS Carl Bloom and PS QR tests in the fall, which the way I understand it's going to work, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, it's going to be a program's going to be picked. There's going to be similar to what I said about what happened in that Parks and Rec special. There'll be a squeeze back. There'll be want more information, scan here. There'll be.
Yeah, we're going to go through it. I think at the end. I think it's the last slide. Yeah, the
What's
last
that?
slide will give all the information about that.
Oh, okay. Oh, then I don't have to explain it. Okay. I think that's it, right?
It's a good tease for it, though.
All right. Thank you. Now on to Katrina.
Thank you. I kind of feel like Henry and I should have called ourselves Rob as well, so we would have had a complete set, but
Yeah, right.
okay, so back in December, much like the rest of you, I saw, I think it was NBC using QR codes as a fundraiser, and talked about it with Claire, my boss, and other folks, and we decided to go for it since we were going to be doing conversational texting anyway. And anybody else who's using ACD, ACD provides the QR code for each campaign you've created, so it's like a no-brainer, it's really easy. So we went ahead and did it, and we got some interesting results. The QR code, even though there was slightly fewer, we had 113 QR folks come in to 123 text folks. QR people gave a bit more. And so they were giving, you know, slightly bigger gifts, and we found that of the QR people, like it says here, 49%, 55 of the 113 QR people were brand new. So, and there was only 48 new people out to text things, so the texting. So I think, I don't know if it's, you know, like it's already been discussed, QR has really been everything's old new again, you know, from the past quarantine year. Everybody's familiar with it now, and I don't know if it's like younger folks are coming in, and to me it's really important that we break down any barriers to donating. So just like you've looked at your pledge donation pages where you've said let's not have too many clicks till we get to the page where they put the credit card in, to me the QR code's exactly the same. You know, they don't have to, the barriers are, like we said before, having to get to the web page, then, you know, having to enter your information and everything. All of those are barriers to donating. And younger people are more about, I want to do something, I want to do it now, and if there's any barriers, then I'm not going to do it. So to me, the QR codes are looking at that younger generation, which as PBS, that's who we're really interested in, because well, I don't know about your demographics, but we have an aging demographic. And so we're very interested in bringing in your 30-year-olds and what have you into our fundraising group. So as everybody else showed you, that's the bar we had at the bottom of our screen. We had like a little sunrise thing. And as Rob said before, I think the real breakthrough with QR has been that you don't have to use an app anymore. Just use your camera, excuse me, just use your camera and it goes straight to it. We initially, our graphics guy initially did not have the web page on that bar, and we did notice a dip in web donations. So we put it back in and they went back up. So my advice is if you can get all 3 pieces of information in, the phone, the website, and your QR code, just shove it all in there. And as long as they're donating, to me, you know, we don't have dumb viewers, so they'll work out what suits them best. So next slide, please. And like we said before, it's about meeting the donors where they are. So, you know, for the on-air stuff, I should have added that I really believe nobody is just sitting on the sofa watching TV anymore. They are looking stuff up on their phone. I know that I'm always playing Words with Friends or something else like that while we're watching TV. Everybody's multitasking. And so to me, it makes sense that, you know, the personal devices that folks have are like attached to them all the time. So you should facilitate that way of donating. Later on in the slides, I'll show you this. This is the In Focus newsletter, which is going out. We are currently putting our QR codes inside our In Focus. So I'm hoping that that's something people are going to be interested in doing as well, that they'll donate this way and have the text to give. I don't have any results from this because it's just recently gone out. So we'll see how that goes. If you go to the next slide, I'll show you what else we've been doing. So Rob had talked about the differences between the lapse campaigns and ad gift campaigns, and I'm interested in finding out more about that too. When I was thinking about QR codes and I pick up my mail from my mailbox and I walk up the street, I'm reading the postcards that I get in the mail, and anything that has a charity on the outside of the envelope, I'm just sort of tearing up and putting in the recycle. I'm not even opening those envelopes because I tend to give to them on a cycle. You know, I give to them in October, November. That's when I donate to folks. So, but I noticed myself that I was reading postcards, and I thought, okay, once again, thinking about breaking down the barriers to donating, what's stopping our donors reading about how great we are? They don't want to open the envelope. So let's get some, you know, bright graphics in there that promote our page. Let's put succinct text on the postcard that they can read, that it's a driveway walk read. They should be able to read your text between picking up their mail and getting to their kitchen. And I'm thinking most people, I don't know about you, but if you look at your own behavior, do you have a phone in your hand when you pick up your mail? Generally, we all do. I've got mine glued to my hand all the time. So my idea was that they pick up the mail, they read this on the driveway walk back to the house. They think, oh yeah, I've been meaning to donate, and they scan it with their phone. That was the plan. And we did it to, we thought we'll do a test, 1,000 postcards to some A-tagged folks, lapsed folks, and let's see, you know, what kind of response we get. And we put the video PBS app in there as well, and you know, postcards are cheaper than mail, so it was like a little experiment. Well, full disclosure, we didn't get anybody. So, but I think I'm onto something here, because these folks had all been solicited in an earlier lapsed mailing. And we had over a dozen of these folks who had not responded initially, but then when they got the postcard, they responded in the 10 days, 2 weeks after they got the postcard. So I don't know if the postcard was like a reminder, and you know, it was interesting. They maybe learned about Passport because I made sure to put that in there. But all those folks also gave at the Passport level. So I'm feeling that maybe I was able to reach out to them, communicate, and they saw the information about Passport, decided, okay, I'm going to up my donation so I can get Passport. They told us about their email in their response coupon from the Lapsed gift mailing. And I feel like I'm onto something here, but maybe, like Rob said before, maybe Lapsed is not the audience we should be going to. I spoke to Jerry about it from PBS Fundraising, and he said, what about an acquisition piece? Maybe because we had 49% of folks coming online that were brand new, maybe a postcard acquisition piece would be a better use of these resources. Maybe you would speak to people. At the very least, I've seen a bunch of webinars where they've encouraged you to push the PBS app and put that promotion on all your information, because once your donor's engaged and they love the PBS app, then they're more likely to feel a relationship with you and they're going to want to donate. So if only to get the extended Passport viewing. So that's where I'm going with postcards just now. I'm sorry I don't have a ton of data, but it's only really been since March that, you know, we've been trying things out. And to me, even failures are informational. So, you know, they help you eventually hone in on your target and get the results you're looking for. So if I could have the next slide, please. So I've got a little bit QR mad, and so a few months ago, I think it was March was our first issue we did it. I asked our magazine editor, she has a proper official title which I can't remember, but I asked her to, please can you put the QR code on the back page of the magazine for me? Because when we print people's name and address and everything, we always put their expiration date in the address block as well. And I figured maybe somebody would see that and say, oh, gee, I'm near, you know, the end of my membership cycle. And we made the QR code there like a dual purpose thing. It's add gift or renew. So, you know, even if you're a sustaining donor, you want to make an additional gift or you're going to renew your membership, here's a QR code. And I think it was just last week, week before, we got a $500 gift come through that QR code. So I'm very happy that that is there. And it's right next to the Passport informational block as well. So that's really good. The other thing I'm doing is we actually have 6 channels, but we only have space for prime time 2 channels in our magazine for the schedule. And I think a lot of our donors don't know about our other channels. They know about the 2 flagship channels, but they don't know about Create and all those other good things that we do. So once again, my wonderful magazine lady put in the QR code there that takes them straight to the 6-channel schedule and explains where the channels are on the provider that they have. So that's, you know, whether you're coming in with Frontier or digital or whatever, all the information are on those pages through this QR code. So, and then I was also speaking, Rob had a really great Easter egg in his PBS annual presentation where his QR code went to a cute little video of Julia Childs. You know that one where they're doing the music and everything. And so the communications department now, we're talking about maybe they'll do like little QR codes that lead to extended viewing about an article in a magazine. So you read a little article about a program. Do you want to see the preview? Scan this QR code, you know, or here's a little Easter egg here for you, scan the QR code. Because to me, engagement with your donor and helping them see the value. And, you know, I remember a few years back, I was at a conference where they said, you have to give joy to your donors. And when they have the joy, they feel the love and they want to donate. So It's all about having a bit of fun. You know, let's make it great that they get the magazine through the door, and what are they going to do with a QR code this time? You know, so that's what I'm trying to do, is build a relationship here. Another way I'm trying to build a relationship with the donors is we have a number of donors that come in every month who are giving through the mail, and they don't tell us what their email is, which means they don't get a benefit. So they don't get the benefit of Passport. So I run a query every month that's looking for recent donors who are eligible for the Passport benefit that we don't have an email for, and we send them a postcard. And there's a little QR code on there now that says, you know, it takes them to the donor information update page so they can tell us their email. And then once we've got the email, haha, great, because not only do they get Passport, but I throw them into the Double the Donation automated cycle that we have. They get pulled into that. And so we've had about a dozen people sign up for matching gifts that we never would have gotten before. So that's, you know, been worthwhile in itself. And also, when we start communicating with these folks, emails are so much more cheaper than having to call them on the phone or send them a letter, you know, your credit card is, you know, expired, whatever. So that's all good stuff. And that's another colorful postcard. To me, QR codes are exciting because you can use them for all sorts of different things. And I think donors really, really love them. I don't know if I have another slide. Do I have another slide? Oh, yes. So it's really important to me as a database manager person that you know where the money is coming from and how successful things are. So I have a different source code for mail, text, email, and QR. And the way I do it is I just change the number on the end of the source code. So it's a 1 for mail, 2 for email, 3 for text, and 4 for QR code. So it's super easy to see, just looking at the source code, where is that money coming from? And it's easy to write queries and everything so that you know how successful things are going. I wanted to know just how are people clicking on the QR codes in the magazine and stuff. But the data folks that I'd asked to set that up said that the Google Analytics were not tracking it properly, and that they actually had to assign a specific tracking code to the vanity URL. So they're going to be doing that for me, so I can get some, more clear results for how that's actually going. But yeah, I think QR codes are great, and I think we should all be, using them as much as possible. So, and that's the end of my presentation, I think.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay.
I think this one's me. Actually, I think go back to the other one, and I'll just fly through this. And I'll apologize. Apparently, the bone that I gave my dog lasted exactly 45 minutes because he is all trying to learn about QR codes in here. So I apologize if he barks. So what's next for CBA in conjunction with our clients? We're really interested in testing more about QR codes, more about in the peer-to-peer texting space. We do think there's, a viable avenue for really increasing donations and expanding our reach through those two techniques. So we're going to be testing different elements of the QR code. Is it worth investing in having an image in the QR code, the placement of it, the size? We're also testing postcards for the PBS video app. We're also moving the postcard testing into some of our joint licensees on the public radio side. Based on your presentation, Katrina, it validated and we agreed to shift some of that testing into the final effort. So adding a final effort to a lapse in an ad gift as a postcard with a QR code to hopefully inspire donors to scan the code or respond to an earlier effort. So a lot of testing is happening in the August-September time period. Peer-to-peer testing, a lot of stations are really interested in using this as a cultivation technique or a drive to watch a pledge show, thank a donor immediately for a gift. And can we go SMS on some of those more cultivation techniques? I completely agree, Rob, that having your logo on fundraising text messages is the way to go. But is it worth it? Is it valid to send some of these immediate thank yous, some of these don't miss out this show without your logo? Or how about a text with a short video clip of an upcoming pledge show that you really want folks to watch? That would be an MMS text. But again, how can we use text to drive viewership? The early renewal text campaign, Rob's been doing it in the month of Expire. What we really want to do is try and get these folks to renew early so we don't have to mail them. Is it worth sending them a text? Can we get some folks and be able to pull them out of the direct mail series? Program promotions, acknowledgements, sustainer conversions. We have several stations doing Sustainer Month this year. Some are doing it in October, others in February. So that will include quite a bit of text to give on-air messaging, Sustainer upgrade. It'll be text bump me up, I think. Text bump me up to 51555, and they'll get a link to upgrade their sustaining donation. So all of these new techniques being tested in different ways this upcoming year. And of course, in the fall, we're launching the PBS NPS QR test campaign, which I know both WEDU and WOSU are signed on for. So basically what it is, can I go to the next slide? Jerry and Deirdre and Marie and Sydney and all the great folks at PBS Fundraising called, and we were really talking about something Henry said, is how can we use QR codes during our NPS schedule? How can we increase engagement and ideally capture some viewership information and then put them in a funnel of cultivation that ends in conversion to membership? So from that discussion, an idea was born, a plan is in place, and we have 5 of the 6 stations that are allowed. We have a maximum of 6 stations allowed to participate for this initial test. So basically what we're going to have is a NPS show like Finding Your Roots on your screen. We're going to have a captivating question, a teaser, something, some behind the scenes footage with a QR code that takes them for more. Hope you don't mind, Katrina, we mocked up your WEDU bottom third for this one. So something really captivated that encourages a viewer to scan the QR code to get some behind the scenes information. So from there, they will go to a landing page for some basic information, their name, their email address, and their cell phone number will be asked. CBA will take that information, do a merge purge against your active donors. So we're making sure that the funnel is really targeting prospects. We're going to send them emails. The first several emails will be purely cultivation. I hope you enjoyed the behind the scenes footage. Here's more. Then it will slowly go into downloading the PBS video app as a small call to action. And then the final pieces of contact will be convert to membership. So are these donors, is cultivating them and then converting them, these viewers, a way to go to convert them into members? And how much prospect information can we capture from these captivating QR codes? One of the things that public media does not, I don't want to say doesn't do as well as other organizations, but that other organizations do more because they have to. We have this great resource in On-Air Pledge, but other organizations don't have that. So what they really constantly are doing is filling the funnel of warm prospects, people who visit their museum, people who go to the library, people who attend an event, and they're capturing all of that information to cultivate and convert them. What we're looking to do for both public television and public radio is to fill that funnel with warm leads. We do that in acquisition direct mail through renting lists, but also doing it this way. Let's capture who's viewing the information. Let's get their information and let's create a relationship with them. And then the next slide, we have a few minutes left. So that kind of goes through what I already went into. We've been maxed out at 6 stations participating. We do have 1 slot left. PBS is sponsoring it by contributing. Thank you, Jerry and team at PBS. Thank you to the Blooms for also sponsoring a third of the cost of the project. And each station investment is worth $2,000. There'll be, I think it's 3 to 5 NPS shows that will include a QR code. From the station perspective, there's some things you have to agree to do. Add the bottom third of the NPS schedule, provide us with the merge purge file, that kind of information. We can send you all of that if you're interested in participating. But it's an exciting test, and we have phase 2 and phase 3 that we're already thinking about as we lead into spring. So how we're using this new technology to really grow the programs for station, increase engagement, and improve fundraising is the goal. I think that's it, Christina. So again, if you're interested in participating or have any questions or want to brainstorm ideas on how you can do it locally, feel free to reach out to Christina or myself. And on that, I'll throw it to Christina. Did we have any questions come in?
We did. Yeah, we had a couple of questions come in and we don't have very long to answer them. So I did want to ask, what kind of teasers are you recommending, Jody, if somebody is going to be using this in the lower third?
For pledge or for
Yeah.
the NPS?
For the using the NPS model, but if you wanted to apply it, do you have any recommendations?
So I think one of the things, and Christina, you could probably answer this question better than I can because you've done more of the research as we've been looking at this PBS NPS test in terms of who's responding to in the commercial sector and in regular broadcast stations, what is really capturing people to scan the QR code. Christina, did you actually want to answer that one because you've done the research?
Sure, I guess so. You know, in talking to one of our digital staff members, if you're going to be using this, you know, in the lower third at all, you want to lean a little bit more. It gets a bad rap, but a little bit more clickbait-ish. So instead of saying, if we were talking about Hemingway, instead of saying something like, want to learn more about Hemingway, you would want to say something like, want to know what Hemingway's first wife really thought about him? Click here to find out. And then driving people to that additional content that already exists on a site somewhere. So kind of the sexier, the better is what we've learned.
And there was another, I mean, to go through this, and I think the station is actually online. I don't want to call them out or anything, but one of the things that sort of started this thinking was that there was a great national show called Black Churches, and I was on one of our station's website, and they had some amazing content of local. They had localized it, and it was so breathtaking, their local content and how they were able to pull that national into local. And I kept thinking of, wouldn't it have been great if the QR code was on during that and said, you know, see how this has impacted our own community. And I really thought that would be a great use as well. And of course, if you can ever put a landing page up to capture the information of who's going there, that's even better. Make sure that you capture their email address. You can continue that relationship. But even still, that engagement, that joy that Katrina talked about that I wrote down, I love that so much. If you can create that, that's all the better. Yep.
And I also wanted to add that I think there's a lot of, talking about engagement again, people are really thirsting for a community involvement. So if you were doing a town hall or something like that, it would be great to have a QR code that linked to a place where you could have a discussion forum, you know, live like they do on Twitter. You know, I don't know how it all works, but, you know, I think people are really thirsty to be able to talk to like-minded PBS viewers in this day and age, and it would be a sort of curated environment because everybody would be watching the program. So I think that would be really attractive to donors.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to pose one more question because we are at time, and that is, can you tell us again what the SMS texting is and why it costs 15 cents as opposed to the other prices that we're seeing?
Sure. So the SMS is the short messaging service texting. And it does cost less because there are very few characters, and I actually think, I don't have the slide in front of me, was it 300 characters allowed? It is a very short text.
60, I think.
Thank you.
160.
It is a very short text. We have done very few of them for public broadcasting in particular because the text is so short and there's no logo on the text. So that's why it's less expensive. But I do think there's some real value, especially when we're talking about cultivation or a quick thank you. I mean, if say on air during on-air pledge, you wanted to at the end of the night send a super quick thank you to everybody who pledged that night, we can do that through SMS texting because it's quick, it's easy. I don't think there needs to be a logo if you're not asking them to do anything and it's just a thank you. So that's the kind of thing we're going to be testing. Where can we use SMS to save some money for the stations and not impact results and build the cultivation?
Okay. Okay, well, that's all we're going to do for now. We are at time. What an exciting session. Thank you all for filling the hour with some really interesting information. I did want to let everyone know this is being recorded. We will send it out very soon, and that will be a copy of the slides. We did have someone ask for a copy of the slides because, Katrina, they love some of your ideas and wanted to copy them. So thank you all so much for illuminating us. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody.